The moment Petty Officer Second Class Marcus Reed stepped through the heavy watertight hatch into the lower decks of the USS Gerald R. Ford, he felt the weight of the ship, not just the steel above, but the legacy and the expectation that came with it. The air was dense, tinged with oil and ozone, vibrating faintly from the hum of machinery hidden beyond the walls. Every corridor, every pipe overhead, whispered of unseen systems working around the clock. As the newest member of the internal systems team, Reed wasn't there to admire the engineering. He was expected to become part of its rhythm, fast. A narrow hallway opened before him, lined with labeled conduits and warning placards in fluorescent stencils. Another sailor brushed past, giving only a curt nod. There were no greetings in this part of the ship, only motion, discipline, purpose. Senior Chief Donnelly, a broad-shouldered man with graying temples and a voice like sandpaper on steel, waited at the junction near the port bulkhead. He didn't offer a smile. "You, Reed?" "Yes, Chief." "You're on power distribution. Bravo team. Don't touch anything without your leads say so. Lose your way, don't guess, call it in. This isn't a destroyer, this is the Ford. We make the rest of the fleet run." "Yes, Chief." Donnelly pointed with his flashlight, already walking. "Let's go. Drill's in 90 minutes. Reed struggled to keep pace as they ducked through hatchways and descended steep ladders. Each compartment they passed was a world of its own. Computer bays, fluid systems, cable runs thicker than his arm, and deeper still, past deck after deck, they reached the heart of what made the carrier unlike any vessel that had come before, the electromagnetic aircraft launch system. "Emails is your holy ground," Donnelly said, resting a hand on a nearby bulkhead. "Looks quiet, isn't. These coils can throw a 70,000-pound bird into the air in under 3 seconds. But you don't see the power. It lives down here." Reed's eyes followed the bulkheads, the dense cabling, the diagnostic panels blinking silently. "So we babysit the launch system?" he asked. "You monitor it, learn from it, respect it. This ship doesn't tolerate mistakes." The first hours passed in blur. Reed shadowed his team lead, Petty Officer Freeman, a woman with a calm voice and a spine made of mission checklists. Together they inspected power transfer panels, adjusted digital readouts, and filed electronic reports on handheld tablets. Reed noted everything, asking the few questions that wouldn't make him look green. During a short pause, he caught a glimpse of another corridor, one filled with blue-lit racks, guarded by a sailor with a sidearm. Freeman followed his gaze. "Combat Information Center," she said. "That's the brain. We're the blood vessels." They moved on. Reed found a strange comfort in the ship's monotony, the hiss of ventilation, the mechanical groan beneath his boots, the predictability of process, until the alarm klaxon shattered it. "Drill, drill, drill. Damage control alert. Simulated fire. Compartment 4, Foxtrot 12. All hands respond according to assigned protocols." Freeman didn't flinch. "You're with me," she said. "Let's see how well you remember the path." They ran, through narrow ladders, through the lung of the ship. It wasn't just about speed. It was about remembering which watertight doors auto-locked, which routes rerouted airflow, which systems had to be shut down before others. They arrived at the designated compartment, already shrouded in faux smoke and flickering lights. Teams moved with practiced precision. Fire suppression nozzles hissed to life. Communication flowed over radios and shouted orders. Freeman directed Reed toward an auxiliary panel to cut simulated power to the damaged zone. He hesitated, just for a beat, checking the panel 3 times before flipping the toggle. "Good," Freeman said. "Better slow than fried." As quickly as it began, the drill ended. But adrenaline still surged through his limbs. They returned to their station, and for a brief moment, Reed sat back against the cold bulkhead. Freeman studied him. "You did all right. But drills aren't pretend down here. If a real fire starts in the launch control banks, we lose jets, or worse, That's why we run this stuff, again and again. Reed nodded, more sober than proud. He understood now. The drills weren't tests. They were insurance, because inside the hull there were no second chances. Later that night, after the last inspection round and a short meal in the mess, Reed lay in his rack, staring at the metal above. He could still feel the vibration of the ship, a low rumble like a giant sleeping. He didn't know everyone aboard yet, not by name, but he was beginning to understand the unspoken bond that linked them. Thousands of sailors, thousands of tasks, one vessel alive and breathing in the dark beneath the sea's surface. Sleep crept in slowly, but not before his thoughts drifted back to one thing. Donnelly had said, "This ship doesn't tolerate mistakes." He now understood what that meant, and just how unforgiving life inside the hull of the world's most advanced aircraft carrier could be. The clang of boots echoed through the corridor as Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kincaid descended into the propulsion control deck. Unlike the upper levels of the ship, the lower decks rarely saw sunlight or silence. Here, everything pulsed with pressure, power, and precision. Kincaid's presence always brought a stillness among the sailors. Her reputation wasn't carved in volume, but in results. She had earned her position through sweat, fire drills, and impossible hours logged in the ship's engineering heart. "Status report," she said, stepping into the reactor diagnostics bay. Chief Warrant Officer Lynn, already scanning thermal readouts, didn't look up. Both A1B reactors are stable. Output holding at 98% efficiency. One microfluctuation in the starboard primary coolant loop, already contained. Kincaid scanned the board, her eyes sharp. "Let me see the log. If that loop wavered, we log it. This is not the kind of system that forgives memory lapses." Lynn handed her the tablet wordlessly. Outside the glass partition, a half-dozen sailors moved like dancers across a stage, weaving between conduits and gauges, manually checking redundancies. The machines hummed, whispered, hissed. The pulse of nuclear power was steady, but it always demanded reverence. The USS Gerald R. wasn't just a marvel of engineering, it was a paradox. Massive, but nimble. Lethal, but delicate. Its 2 nuclear reactors could power a small city, yet their silence was eerie. Even deep within the hull, with hundreds of sailors bustling around her, Kincaid often felt like the ship itself was listening. Watching. Down one deck, Petty Officer Marcus Reed was adjusting to the monotony of systems checks. Since his first drill, he'd been assigned deeper into the labyrinth, supporting the electromagnetic catapult systems under Lieutenant Ramirez. The email's deck wasn't as hot as the reactor compartments, but the tension felt more electric, literally. "Get me voltage readings off coil 3, Ramirez called, pushing his glasses up his nose. "If that thing fluctuates during a launch cycle, we could pancake a Super Hornet against the deck." Reed moved with confidence, though he still double-checked every wire, every input. This time, he wasn't trailing behind. He was part of the process. The diagnostic readout blinked. "Coil 3's clean," Reed reported. "Operating 2.7% below nominal, but inside the safe window." Ramirez gave a sharp nod. "Still flag it. I want engineering to run a thermal sweep next rotation. That kind of drift can stack over time." Reed took the order without complaint. He liked Ramirez. Sharp but fair, intense without being explosive. It was clear he trusted his systems more than most people, but it was also clear he didn't treat that trust lightly. Up 2 decks, Kincaid had moved into the weapons elevator access chamber, standing before a sealed lift shaft that ran the height of the ship like an artery. These elevators were the silent giants of the Ford, capable of transporting massive munitions to the flight deck in seconds. She watched a team of ordnance sailors load a test container onto a lift platform. "Simulated live load," said Master-at-Arms Gomez beside her. "Routine cycle." Kincaid frowned. "Make sure the counterweight sensors are recalibrated afterward. We've been seeing delay ticks over 5 seconds. Gomez raised an eyebrow. You thinking EM interference? I'm thinking redundancy failure, maybe structural friction. Either way, 5 seconds can kill tempo in combat. Find it. She turned and walked on, confident the message had landed. On a ship like this, small inconsistencies weren't harmless. They were the cracks that could open wide at the worst moment. In the mess later that evening, Reed slid into a seat across from Freeman. The compartment buzzed with voices, laughter, and the clatter of silverware. But Reed's gaze was elsewhere, on a young sailor at the next table, alone, staring into space over a tray of untouched food. "New guy?" he asked. Freeman glanced over. "Sanchez, aviation tech, just transferred in from Pensacola. First time underway. Doesn't talk much." Reed remembered the feeling, the isolation, the sound of metal all around, the thought that one wrong move could trigger a chain reaction. He picked up his tray and shifted seats. "Hey," he said. "You Sanchez?" The sailor looked up surprised. "Yeah, Marcus, right? Reed, you look like you're still learning the ship." "Feels like I'll never stop. This place is a maze." Reed smiled. "It is, but we learn it piece by piece. The important stuff anyway." Sanchez nodded slowly. "What if I mess up? One of those lifts, one of those cables. I've never worked on a carrier this size." "You will. That's why there's 20 people between you and any real damage. But eventually, yeah, they'll trust you with it. Happens faster than you think." For the first time since the drill, Reed realized how far he'd come and how much further he had to go. Later that night, inside the Combat Information Center, Kincaid stood with the ship's tactical officer, watching a real-time display of the airspace surrounding the carrier. A radar sweep marked a fast-moving contact just outside the detection threshold. "Unidentified drone. Could be commercial, could be something else," the tactical officer murmured. "No breach yet." Kincaid's jaw tightened. "Get air wing ready. I want a Raven in the air within the hour." The lights dimmed as the system shifted to combat-ready status. Inside the hull, a quiet tension descended. Everyone felt it, like a sudden shift in pressure, a change in the rhythm of the ship's heartbeat. Reed received a message on his comm. "All systems. Stand by for mission alert." It wasn't a drill this time. He looked up from the control panel, listening to the metallic groan of the massive ship around him. Somewhere above, fighters were preparing to launch. Somewhere ahead, an unknown threat loomed. And down here, in the hidden vanes and sealed compartments, the ship's crew braced to do what they'd trained for: keep the ship alive, no matter what waited beyond the horizon. A low rumble vibrated through the floor, followed by the unmistakable whir of the electromagnetic catapult system coming to life. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kincaid gripped the steel handrail beside her as the USS Gerald R surged forward into action. In the Combat Information Center, the unidentified drone had made a subtle course change, angling closer to the strike group's perimeter. No transponder, no hails answered. It could have been nothing. But out here in contested waters, nothing often meant trouble. On the flight deck, Petty Officer Marcus Reed stood near the email's control panel, eyes locked on the readout. The launch cycle had begun. One FA-18 Super Hornet was being prepped for immediate takeoff, eyes in the sky. Despite the adrenaline threading through his veins, Reed's fingers remained steady. Every number mattered. Every switch, a lifeline. Lieutenant Ramirez barked into his headset. "Launch sequence initiated. Reed. Confirm coil integrity now. Coils 1 through 4 holding at peak. Thermal variant stable," Reed reported. His voice was calm, but he felt the weight of 100 lives above him. One misfire, and the jet wouldn't leave the deck. It would crumple into a multi-million-dollar wreck, possibly taking crew with it. Above, jet blast deflectors rose. The FA-18's engines roared. The electromagnetic pulse surged with a soundless punch. In a blink, the fighter vanished down the track and into the sky, climbing sharply toward the horizon where the drone had last been seen. Back inside the CIC, Kincaid watched the radar plot. "Eagle 1 is airborne. Let's see what this thing is." The fighter pilot's voice crackled through the feed moments later. "Visual on the bogey. It's not commercial. Shape is wrong. Looks like modified surveillance. Possibly state-made." Kincaid didn't flinch. "Mark it. Do not engage unless it crosses into restricted airspace." On deck, another crew prepared the second jet. Everyone operated with practiced precision, yet the tension was unmistakable. Reed stepped away from the EMALS control panel, giving a nod to Ramirez. "You ever get used to it?" Reed asked. Ramirez smirked. "What, the launches, the adrenaline, or the fact that any second something could go from routine to wartime?" Reed half laughed. "All of it." "Nope," Ramirez replied. "You just get better at hiding it." Below the flight deck, Kincaid entered the weapons loading bay, where munitions were being moved under lockdown protocols. Master-at-Arms Gomez met her with an update. "All cruise missile systems green. CIWS and CRAM batteries fully armed but on hold. If they try to breach, we'll be ready." She appreciated Gomez's discipline. When stress ran high, it was tempting to act first. But control was everything. The Ford didn't flinch, and neither could its crew. Suddenly, the voice of the air boss came over the general comms. "Unknown aerial has altered course. Heading away from fleet. Repeat, contact is disengaging." A wave of unspoken relief passed through the ship. Kincaid exhaled slowly. The threat hadn't materialized. But the drill, the tension, the reaction had all been real and necessary. Hours later, the ship had returned to a calmer rhythm. Reed was back in diagnostics, logging his shift notes. The crew wasn't celebrating. There was nothing to celebrate. Just another unknown dealt with, another reminder that the Gerald R. Ford wasn't floating through friendly waters. It was a target with engines. Kincaid stood at the edge of the catwalk overlooking the hangar bay. Aircraft crews cleaned and serviced their birds. Sailors moved ordnance under strict watch, and everywhere the low thrum of readiness pulsed through the hull like a second heartbeat. She was joined by the ship's XO, Commander Ellis, who handed her a fresh report. "No trace signals from the drone, probably just a scout. Testing reactions," he said. Kincaid nodded. "They were watching us, and now they know." "They saw what they needed to see." "And so did we," she replied. "Coordination was tight. Systems responded. No panics." Ellis gave a thoughtful nod. "And the new crew?" "Still green in spots, but they followed orders. Reed performed under pressure. I'd take 10 more like him." "You'll probably get them," Ellis chuckled. "They're calling us the benchmark now. Every new sailor wants Ford on their file." Kincaid watched a young sailor guide an aircraft tug with hand signals, precise, confident, learning fast. "This ship isn't just a symbol," she said. "It's alive. And if they think they're testing us, they have no idea how deep this hull runs." As night settled over the carrier, the ocean stretched out like ink, horizonless and vast. From the deck, the moon cast long shadows between the aircraft. Inside the hull, the crew rotated to sleep, to guard duty, to drills and resets. But no one truly relaxed. They didn't need to. They were the ship's nerves, its reflexes, its will. And the USS Gerald R. Ford, silent and powerful, continued forward, ready for whatever the sea would throw next.